Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. And today we are continuing to work through the Old Testament. And in each book of the Old Testament, we're seeing our picture of Jesus Christ being filled out and made more complete in what was a process over centuries that God did. Just like the build-up to Christmas, the build-up to the first Christmas heightened people's excite as details were gradually revealed. And today we're looking at the book of Numbers. You know, the book of Numbers is when the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness after they had been delivered from Egypt. And a journey that should have taken 40 days ended up taking 40 years because of their fear and their disobedience in refusing to enter into the promised land straight away. But we find some beautiful little passages in Numbers that look forward to Jesus Christ and are confirmed as doing so when we read the New Testament. First of all, there's the time whenever they were in the wilderness in the book of Numbers and the people were thirsty and there was no water, and God caused water to flow out of a rock. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 1 to 4, it tells us that this was actually speaking about Jesus Christ. This was not just a miracle that had to be done because people were thirsty. This was part of God preparing the way for the coming of Jesus. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 1, "For I do not want you to be ignorant of the fact, brothers and sisters, that our ancestors were all under the cloud and that they all passed through the sea." That's the Red Sea. "They were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. And they all ate the same spiritual food, the manna, and Jesus, of course, is the bread of heaven. And they drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock that accompanied them, and that rock was Christ." And so whenever the people in the book of Numbers, whenever they drank of the water that flowed miraculously out of the rock, it was looking ahead to when Jesus would stand up and say that he was the living water, and that from him streams of living water would flow to everybody. And then also, of course, in the book of Numbers, we have that strange incident with the bronze serpent, where the people were being bit by poisonous snakes, and God told Moses to make a bronze serpent and put it up on a pole. And Jesus, in John chapter 3, verses 14 and 15, right before John 3:16, with that wonderful gospel in a nutshell, it says, "Just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, that everyone who believes may have eternal life in him." And Jesus said, if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me." Now, it might seem strange to us that a snake would be a symbol of Jesus Christ, but it shouldn't be, because the New Testament also tells us that God, in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21, God made him who had no sin to become sin for us. That when Jesus was lifted up on the cross in the fulfillment of these events in the book of Numbers with the brass serpent, that all the sin of the human race was laid upon his shoulders. God looked down, and instead of seeing his beloved Son upon the cross, you know what he saw? He saw our sin on Jesus' shoulders. All the sin as personified in the serpent, the devil, at any other time, was laid upon Jesus at that time as he carried all that sin for us on the cross, and thank God that he did. But there's one other passage in the book of Numbers that is so wonderful in preparing the way for Jesus to come, and it's where Balaam was hired to prophesy death and destruction over the Israelites, and he tried to do so, and every time he tried to speak out a curse, instead blessings came out of his mouth. And of course we have that wonderful promise now as a result in the book of Nehemiah that says our God turns curses into blessings. But also one of the prophecies that Balaam spoke out over Israel was he saw a star that would arise, that would be a scepter. It would be the arising of a king in Israel. And that was the prophecy that was taken by the Magi, the wise men, whenever they came looking for Jesus when he was born, saying, "We have seen his star in the east." How did they know that this star was speaking about a king of the Jews? Because they were reading the book of Numbers and saw the prophecy of Balaam. So again, Here in the Old Testament, in the book of Numbers, we see this wonderful picture of Jesus being fleshed out and becoming more obvious and more detailed. May God bless you as you think upon these things this day. And please join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.